Hello, I'm Desiree Drescher, Director of Product Management on the Oracle Student Financial Aid team. And in this spotlight, I will be reviewing the updates that we are delivering in 26B. Let's start with a quick overview of what we'll cover in the 26B spotlight. First, we'll walk through the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill on student financial aid, what's changing, and why it matters to you, our customers. Next, we'll review the release strategy for 26B, including timing, rollout approach, and what you can expect from a delivery perspective. And finally, we'll go through the key contents of the 26B release, highlighting the most important capabilities being delivered. With that, let's start with the impact. The One Big Beautiful Act introduces a significant shift for student financial aid. Signed into law in July 2025, it impacts Title IV programs, especially Pell Grants and direct loans, starting with the 26-27 award year. These changes are broad and operationally complex, and it's important to note that the Department of Education's guidance is still evolving. As a result, institutions need to be prepared as requirements continue to take shape. This gives you a sense of the scale and complexity of the OBBB impact. At a high level, these changes are massive, highly disruptive, and still evolving, with late-breaking guidance continuing to shape how institutions respond. In fact, this drives updates across nearly all of our product modules. From a functional perspective, the impact spans across the entire lifecycle. SAIG and data exchange with new ICER formats, NSLDS updates, and COD schema changes. Pell and non-federal funds, including cost of attendance controls and the new Workforce Pell program. And direct loans, where we see significant changes to loan limits, eligibility rules, and the elimination or restructuring of certain loan programs. The key takeaway here is that this is not a simple change. It is a broad transformation that touches nearly every aspect of financial aid processing. Now let's shift gears and talk about our release strategy for Update 26B. We'll walk through how we're planning the rollout and what you can expect in terms of timing and how we're supporting you through these new changes. Our release strategy focuses on three key principles. First, simulate and validate before impacting students, giving you the ability to test with real data in a controlled environment. Second, seamless movement from test to production. So once you're ready, you can go live without disruption. And third, flexibility to adapt with configuration-driven capabilities that allow you to respond quickly as guidance evolves. Ultimately, this approach is about giving you the confidence to go live knowing your data, configurations, and outcomes are fully validated. So with that, let's walk through how this comes to life in our phased delivery approach. Before we jump into specific features, I want to briefly walk through how we are delivering OBBB functionality because the approach here is critical to reduce risk and maintain stability. Phase 1 is the pre-Ed Go Live hotfix. This prepares for Ed's April 26th Go Live, where ICERs, NSLDS, and COD all introduce new formats and fields at once. To protect your production environment during this transition, on April 25th, we are pausing 26-27 ICER processing and temporarily stopping automated NSLDS intake. This ensures unvalidated or unstable data doesn't impact your system while Ed stabilizes. At the same time, we have introduced more flexibility in how NSLDS data can be used in awarding during this period. Phase 2 is the initial 26B release. This delivers end-to-end support for 26-27 across ICERs, NSLDS, COD, and packaging. At this stage, ICER processing is re-enabled, COD processing begins with the new schema, NSLDS processing resumes once stability is confirmed, and most importantly, this release introduces the core regulatory capabilities, including new loan limits, Workforce Pell, and configuration-driven packaging automation. Phase 3 is additional capabilities. This builds on that foundation with more advanced scenarios, some of which depend on final ed guidance. This phased approach allows us to deliver value early while continuing to adapt as requirements evolve. Overall, the strategy is designed to protect your production environments, enable compliance as quickly as possible, and continue delivering enhancements as guidance stabilizes. With that, let's take a closer look at what's included in 26B. As I mentioned, this release establishes the core foundation for supporting OBBB, bringing together data, packaging, and compliance for the 26-27 aid year. On the left, foundational data and regulatory readiness is where we've aligned to the new ICER, NSLDS, and COD structures so you can receive and process updated federal data. Next, packaging and awarding transformation, introducing key changes to how aid is calculated and awarded, including workforce Pell and loan limit exception management, all driven through configuration to give you flexibility as guidance continues to evolve. On the right, loan limits and compliance enforcement is where we operationalize the new federal rules, including updated loan eligibility and limits. And finally, visibility and decision support, giving you insight into OBBB funding data to support informed decisions. Let's take a deeper look now into each of these areas. Starting with foundational data and regulatory readiness. One of the unique aspects of OBBB is that ICER formats are changing mid-cycle, something that we haven't seen before. With 26B, we've built in multi-layout ICER support to handle that seamlessly, so institutions can continue processing without disruption. The system automatically identifies which ICER version is being received using the ICER version flag available on the ICER record and through API messages so that the correct layout and logic is applied. The updated ICER also includes new OBBB data elements, including workforce Pell and data sourced from NSLDS, ensuring you have what's needed for downstream processing and awarding. We've also added support for new comment codes and ICER corrections while maintaining data integrity across evolving schemas. The end result is that you can continue operating as expected while we've handled the complexity of these changes behind the scenes. We've also incorporated the latest ICER comment and reject code updates from the Department of Education's January updates, which impacts both the 25-26 and 26-27 award years. First, we've added new comment codes 335 through 338 to identify missing state information tied to mailing addresses, along with clearer guidance for resolution. Second, we've made updates to existing comment codes to improve messaging and usability while retiring codes that are no longer relevant. And third, we've aligned reject code logic with these changes, removing outdated rules and mapping certain reject codes to the new comment codes so users get clearer, more actionable direction. The result is clear guidance and improved alignment with ICER resolution requirements, helping ensure compliance across both award years. In addition to the ICER updates, we've also enhanced NSLDS file processing to support the new OBBB data requirements. This includes updates to the application detail record with additional fields and expanded data to support things like loan limit tracking, aggregate balances, and graduate and professional data. We're also supporting new data elements introduced, including indicators for workforce Pell and additional loan-related details that are critical for packaging and compliance. From a processing standpoint, we've standardized file formats and field positions, along with updates across TSM and FAH records so that new data elements can be reliably received and used across downstream functions. All of this ensures that NSLDS data is fully aligned with the new federal requirements and ready to support updated awarding and reporting. Lastly, as part of supporting updated Department of Education data, we've aligned COD processing with the new 26-27 schema. This enables full support for originations and disbursements using the new COD XML 5.0D format, including the additional data elements required for OBBB. These updates introduce key data points such as enrollment intensity, workforce Pell indicators, and institutional limit flags, which are critical for accurate awarding and reporting. We also support receiving unsolicited COD responses in the new schema, including MPNs, credit decisions, and PLUS responses. This ultimately ensures your COD processing remains aligned with federal requirements and supports the full 26-27 lifecycle. With that data foundation in place, let's now look at how this impacts packaging and awarding. With 26B, we've updated baseline configuration to support all Title IV funds, including new Pell Grant values, along with example non-federal funds, so that you can begin packaging with the right foundation in place. This includes updates across key configuration workbooks to support eligibility, awarding logic, and regulatory compliance, all driven through configuration. And as guidance continues to evolve, we recommend leveraging student messaging capabilities to communicate that awards may change, helping set clear expectations during this transition period. This gives you a configurable and adaptable packaging framework, allowing you to move forward with awarding while staying aligned with ongoing changes. Next, let's look at workforce Pell enablement and how this comes together across the full process. With 26B, we support automated workforce Pell processing from eligibility through disbursement. It starts with ICER corrections, where you can identify and correct workforce Pell eligibility directly from the ICER data using configurable discrepancy rules. From there, during packaging, the system uses that corrected ICER data to determine eligibility and automatically package workforce Pell and tuition and fees based on your configuration. And finally, when you move on to origination and disbursement, that workforce Pell data is included in COD reporting, ensuring that correct information is sent as part of the disbursement process. So this really provides you an end-to-end configuration-driven flow for workforce Pell, from identifying eligibility all the way through packaging, reporting, and dispersing. Another key capability supporting OBBB in 26B is loan limit exception management, which provides greater control and automation when applying loan limit exceptions based on ED guidance. There are two ways an exception can be identified. First, through ED-provided data on the ICER, where we leverage the loan limit exception flag directly within configurable awarding criteria. If that flag is not present, we support a second path using the OB3 interim exception document, allowing institutions to capture and apply exception criteria based on defined rules. In both cases, this results in a standardized exception indicator that feeds into packaging. From there, new OB3 configuration uses that indicator to determine whether standard loan limits apply, or if the student qualifies for an exception and prior limits should be used. And as we continue to expand this, future releases will introduce additional eligibility criteria checks within configuration, further enhancing how exceptions are identified and applied. This provides a flexible configuration-driven approach to managing loan limit exceptions while staying aligned with evolving guidance. This slide shows how we bring together institutional policy and federal logic through the new configurable OB3 criteria framework. Starting on the left, awarding override criteria is where the institution defines its policies. This is where you set the context for packaging using inputs like data captured from documents, school-specific rules, and loan limit exception indicators to drive awarding decisions. That result then feeds into a new configurable OB3 criteria where we apply the federal loan limit logic. This layer reads the upstream decisions, like whether an exception exists, and either preserves that exception or applies the appropriate federal rules. And finally, on the right, packaging uses both of those together to determine the final award. OB3 configuration provides the boundaries, like limits or remaining eligibility, while packaging rules ultimately determine the final amounts. So this framework allows you to separate institutional decisioning from federal enforcement while bringing them together seamlessly in the final award. And by delivering this through configuration, it allows us to quickly adapt and to make updates as final rules are confirmed or further changes are introduced. All right, now let's shift into loan limits and compliance enforcement and how we're operationalizing these new federal requirements. This slide outlines how we're supporting loan limits and compliant enforcement under OBBB through the new OB3 configuration-driven framework that I just mentioned. At a high level, all major loan types are impacted: Grad Plus, Parent Plus, Graduate, Professional, and Institutional limits with updated annual and aggregate thresholds. You'll see that the loan limit exceptions play a key role, allowing prior limits to be applied when eligibility criteria is met. For example, Grad Plus is eliminated, Parent Plus introduces new annual and aggregate caps, and graduate and professional loans now have defined limits. We also support institutional loan limits, giving you the flexibility to define limits based on your own programs. From an aggregate perspective, we are currently leveraging SFA data to determine remaining eligibility for PLUS loans. In future releases, this logic will also be applied to graduate and professional loans, along with expanded use of NSLDS data. And importantly, the same framework will also be extended in upcoming releases to support lifetime loan limits, along with the additional aggregate calculations. Another important piece here is how we distinguish between graduate and professional students, since that directly drives loan limits. Starting on the left, we use existing configurable grade level progression logic to determine whether a student should be treated as graduate or professional. This is based on a combination of award year and program type, and importantly, SIP code evaluation to identify programs that meet professional criteria. Based on that, the system assigns the appropriate grade level, which then drives the loan limit eligibility. From there, in the middle, we apply graduate loan limits for applicable grade levels using the new annual and aggregate thresholds. Or on the right, if the student is classified as professional, the higher professional loan limits are applied. The key takeaway here is that the grade level becomes the driver for determining which loan limit apply, and all of this is derived through configuration, giving institutions flexibility in how that classification is defined and applied. And this framework will be extended to support configuration logic that evaluates SFA and NSLDS data for prior and concurrent enrollment determination in future releases. All right, finally, let's look at visibility and decision support and how we're surfacing OBBB funding data. With 26B, we are surfacing key data elements across the life cycle so that you can have better insight into eligibility, loan limits, institutional controls, and workforce Pell. These data points are not only available in the UI, but also configurable and reportable, giving you flexibility in how you use them for decision-making and compliance. For example, you'll have visibility into things like loan limit exception indicators, workforce Pell, tuition and fees, and institutional limits, helping you understand how decisions are being applied in awarding. What's shown here is just a subset of the available fields. For full details, including how each field is configured, displayed in the UI, and available in reporting and extract views, please refer to the release notes. The goal is to provide transparency and access to the right data so institutions can make informed decisions and adapt as requirements continue to evolve. To get the full value of these features and to make your uptake as easy as possible, see the Readiness What's New documentation on the Oracle Help Center at docs.oracle.com. I also encourage you to view other resources within Cloud Customer Connect and Oracle documentation. These tools offer guidance, best practices, and a community where you can ask questions or share feedback. We have covered a lot in the 26B Spotlight, and we appreciate your time. We're excited about what this release enables and look forward to continuing to support you as these changes evolve. Thank you.